Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm going to let some of you come in from the waiting room here in a second, and then we'll go ahead and get started here. All right, Chris, we'll go ahead and get started. I don't really see anyone in here quite yet, but oh, wait. All right, perfect. I think we're good.
Good.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for coming to our webinar this afternoon or morning, depending on where you're from, to learn about more about Kansas State University, KState Online, and our online business programs. My name is Sarah Kells. I'm one of the online recruitment coordinators. I'm here along with one of my colleagues, Hannah Rollison. And then also, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today, Chris Shumway. He is the advisor for our online business programs. Thank you so much again, Chris, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. But we'll
Yeah, glad to be here. Glad to be here.
all good. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So today, we will go ahead and do a few poll questions and then about 20-30 minutes for our presentation. During that presentation, definitely feel free to ask any questions as we go through using that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Definitely, as we go, some of them will definitely answer throughout the presentation, but if we need to, some of them we might actually wait until the very end of the presentation to answer. And then we'll go ahead and wrap up with your next steps after our Q&A at the end. So I'll go ahead and launch these poll questions. So there's 3 poll questions that we'd love to hear from you. Are you currently in Kansas? Are you within maybe another state? Are you outside of the US? Are you an international? You could even be a US citizen or a military joining us. Which one of these applies to you? Also, for our second poll question, what's your skill, subject area, or business topic that you would like to learn? Fill in the blank with maybe your major that you're interested in. Maybe there's an area in business that you really want to focus on, like accounting, marketing, human resources, any of that. So, and then your third one, just a fun one, what's your go-to comfort food? For me, I love a good bag of chips, just something salty to snack on. Sometimes I'll have a little, dip or something with that. And so, what is your go-to comfort food? And so, thanks so much for sharing those. It looks like we have, some from Kansas. Um, well, let's see here. Let me see the results real quick. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing those. Hannah, what's your favorite go-to food?
I was just thinking about that. Honestly, I lately mine has really been like ice cream at the end of the night, I think is
Oh,
probably our
yeah.
go-to lately.
Yeah. Chris, how about you?
I'm in the same boat with Hannah. Lately, it's been ice cream. I've really been into the Halo Top, and I always think that pint will last me more than one setting. It hasn't lately.
Yeah, I can't keep ice cream around the house. Can't do it. It's trouble. It looks like oh, we got it. Oh, tacos. That's a good one. Cereal. Oh yeah. I have had cereal at night for even dinner. That's a good. I like that. Um, but yeah, it looks like um, business with even construction business. That's a new one. I like that one. Administration. Those are some of the answers we got there. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in that. But we'll go ahead and go on to our presentation. Thanks again for joining us, and I will go ahead and let Chris take it away.
Thanks, Sarah. So I'm excited to be here and tell everyone a little bit about our business programs. It's an exciting year for business programs. We are adding several new majors for the fall. And so to get started, we'll talk a little bit about our longstanding programs, which is the Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with concentrations, and then we'll go into the new majors a little bit. Now, before we get started, I just want to share with everyone that all of the programs we'll talk about today are AACSB accredited. That is the longest standing and most recognized globally accreditation for business programs. And in addition, the accounting department has their own endorsement from IMA, which is the Institute of Management Accountants. So all of the programs will have that AACSB accreditation that we'll talk about today. So kicking it off with the Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with concentrations, we have 4 areas in this program: data analytics, marketing, human resources, and operation supply chain management. What makes these a little more distinct from the majors is that it's a very nimble and interdisciplinary program. So the way this one works is that you choose a concentration area and you'll have 4 classes in that specific area. Really drill down into some of the skills and things you'll use in that field in the workplace. And then you'll have an additional 4 business electives. Now, these can be any 4 business electives. You can mix and match. There's an opportunity to maybe capture 2 different business areas, or hit maybe 3 or 4 different areas of interest. So what I like about this program, it's very nimble. It's great for transfer students. It's great for folks who are on kind of a timeline. Because we have so many options with courses, we can really customize that semester schedule, kind of fit the needs that you have. So again, to kind of delineate the difference between the concentrations and the majors, the concentrations are generally about 8 courses, 4 in a specific area, 4 in a concentration area. 4 of any business electives. And the majors are generally 9 to 10 courses in a specific area. So you might have electives in there, but they're all going to be within that major field. So kind of going into more detail about, okay, well, what are these concentration areas? What do you do with those? First, we have data analytics, and this is all about working with large data sets. So frequently you'll work with softwares like Excel, Tableau, and Power BI, sometimes even SQL, some structured query languages, or Python, right? Doing some light coding. That's not computer science. This is not a computer engineering field, but you'll have, some technical work in your day-to-day. So this is a great area for folks who are like to do a little independent problem solving. In business, we have questions to answer, right? And so this is kind of the detective work in business. We're really drilling down to what is the problem, or what does the consumer want, or what is the trend that's coming down the road. And then marketing, I like to kind of talk alongside data analytics, because in marketing, there's a substantial amount of analytics and kind of critical thinking. So marketing is all about kind of bridging what a company offers and what customers want. We are thinking about things like, how do we cultivate excitement around a product or service? How should we price something, right? What level of pricing is going to make consumers feel like, hey, this is a fair price for that product? I think there's 2 parts to marketing. We have a lot of behind the scenes work where folks are looking at data, they're looking at customer trends, they're kind of putting together that picture. And then we have a creative side of marketing, right? So coming up with some of those exciting ways to sell that product or that service. how do we connect with the current trends? So this is a great field for those that like the idea of creativity in business. They like coming up with a concept or something that makes people excited. And then moving on to our next couple of concentration areas, we have human resources and operations and supply chain management. So on the HR side of things, this is kind of the helping, I like to call it the helping side of business. You are in a role where you're representing the interests of the company, but also the employees and sometimes the customers. So in HR work, a lot of the time, we are ensuring that companies and organizations are following applicable laws, right? That people are being treated fairly, having a good experience with their organization, and in general, have a good workplace culture. This is something we talk about in one of my classes, Genba 105, Business Orientation, and the importance of a good company culture, right? Because when we have that, we have a good company reputation, we keep talent, it's beneficial to the long-term goals of an organization. Conversely, when that doesn't exist in an organization, it has an impact to the reputation of that company. So folks in this field are often working in roles like HR directors, looking at compensation and benefits, right? Kind of negotiating good outcomes for employees. We see a lot of folks go into training and development, right? Coming up with how do we get people ready to work in our organization? Recruiting is a great fit for this area as well. And then last, supply chain. So supply chain, very dynamic field of work. This is a field of work that can take place on, at a desk or on the production line, on the floor of a production line. So typically folks in this field are working in things like supply chain design. They're working in logistics, quality control. Are we putting out a product that meets consumer expectations, that meets the expectations of the company? And then things like process improvement. So in supply chain, we like to think a lot of lean management systems. How do we minimize our input, maximize that output, and do that in a way that's hard to replicate, because that gives a company a huge advantage in the working world. And, this is a good field, I think, for those that, again, like problem solving. I see some connections to data analytics there. You're working with real world processes. You're working hands-on, and you're coming up with solutions to some of the problems we find and encounter in business. So those are the concentration areas. I'm going to move on now to our majors. So to kind of recap what we talked about before, the majors are a little bit more focused than our concentration areas. These tend to be 9 or 10 classes in a specific area of business. Some will have electives, but if it's HR, all of your HR electives will be HR classes, if that makes sense. So first here we have accounting, and this is one of the programs I'm most excited about for the fall. This is something that's been requested for a long time. Of course, we've had it on campus for a long time, but we are very excited to bring this on board for the fall. So a little bit about accounting, it is kind of like the financial report card of business. Accountants are keeping track of money coming into organizations, going out of organizations, and really helping companies understand, what is the financial health of this company. And you're plugged into helping organizations make smart decisions. So in this program, there's about 30 credit hours or 10 courses that cover accounting analytics, financial statement analysis, business valuation, fraud and forensics, which is really cool, international accounting, tax, and business law. And those are the major areas that, for most states, they're looking to see that when students sit for CPA and CMA exams. Uh, just like the on-campus program, this program online is perfectly primed for those that want to go on and do a CPA or CMA certification exam and licensure. Oftentimes with a CPA exam, you will have additional credit hours. That program does require 150 total credit hours. And the most common path we see is that students will do the undergrad program and do the Master of Accountancy. But if you're a transfer student and you have a lot of hours coming in, sometimes you have an opportunity to have those hours already, right, by the time you finish. And so that's something we work closely with accounting on. We'll take a look. There are many paths, can vary by state, but there are many paths to that goal. There is certainly work in accounting with just a bachelor's degree, right? There's a lot of folks out there looking at the financial health of organizations, and you can do that. You're primed to do that with just the bachelor's degree. So moving on, organizational management. This is also a new area for 2025 online. We've had the program on campus for many years, and we haven't talked about this area yet. This is brand new. We don't have a concentration in this area. It's just the major. And so what organizational management is all about is leading, planning, controlling, and organizing. You know, it makes up a lot of the traditional facets of management. And so in this area, students typically take classes in organizational behavior, project management. This is a great field for those that want to work as project managers for Google or other large firms. International management and management analytics, which is quickly becoming kind of a major area. There's so many tools out there now, and a lot of organizations are looking for folks that have that understanding of analytics platforms to help inform some of the decisions that are made. So kind of broadly speaking, what I like about this major is it's very flexible. Among the management majors, this has the most elective options. I think it's a great fit for somebody looking into potentially business law, kind of using this as a pre-law platform, employment law, labor relations. I think where forensic accounting can be a good fit for law, kind of the numbers side of things. This gives you a good perspective into some of the legal aspects of the business world, from a business employment law side of things. So very cool major. And then some of these, now we're moving into human resources again, which we talked about before. We now have a full major in human resources. And what sets this apart from the concentrations is that you will take additional classes. So it is 9 classes specifically in HR. Some of the areas that students will study in the full major are things like employment law, labor relations, negotiations, staffing. We have an entire class dedicated to all the ins and outs of staffing organizations, training and development, international management, and workplace dynamics. So this is a great way to take a deeper dive into conflict resolution, right? And some of the working dynamics. You really get a deeper dive into that. And you get a deeper dive into some of the mechanical aspects of HR, like how do we make staffing work well for everybody? So very excited for this one to be coming on as well as a full major. And then last, operation and supply chain management, right? So again, we talked about this before. We have the concentration for this, but if you wanted to get into the full major, we are looking at things like transportation and warehousing in the full major, supply chain planning and control. There's elective areas in analytics, sales, business law, and other areas of supply chain management, like project management, quality management. So this is a great way to take a deeper dive into supply chain, you're going to see a little bit more as far as the inner workings of transportation systems, warehouses, uh, things like supply chain design, some of the thought processes that go into where should we have our product produced, what services do we use to deliver that to customers, that sort of thing. So this takes the concentration and just takes it to that next level to give you a little bit more perspective into supply chain management. Okay, so I ran through those programs really quickly. I think I've seen we have a lot of questions in the chat. Sarah, do you want me to talk a little bit about the general requirements for admissions, or am I getting out of my lane?
No, you can go ahead and cover that and yeah, any insights you have on that process for sometimes we do get students that don't quite have those GPA requirements. So I would definitely, maybe talk about, some different options and pathways that we can help them.
Yeah, that is a great point. I'll start with that if that's okay. Um, so College of Business does have some selective requirements to declare the major. And for students that don't quite have that, there are a lot of avenues to work your way into this program. And I would want everyone to know we would be so excited to talk to you, help you pave that path forward. So oftentimes, if a student doesn't quite meet the eligibility to declare in business, we will connect you with our really great exploratory studies program. And oftentimes you'll also be connected to me. We'll have a conversation about classes and what you might want to take. And so we will work together to build a plan where you are taking business classes, you are making progress towards your degree, and you have a clear idea of when you'll declare your major. And we do that in a number of ways. With the business programs, we craft individual graduation plans. Within those, there are tabs to show you a semester sequence, show you a checklist of the courses. And I also like to use a GPA calculator that you can edit real time, right? So you can see what grades do I need to get in which semester to hit that mark and know when I can switch in. Now, some things to know about that. The College of Business does have a couple classes that do require you to be declared in your major. Oftentimes, with most majors, we can plan those for your last couple semesters, but that is something we want to account for, right? Is can we get you where you need and want to be with enough time to plan those courses so that we're not extending a graduation timeline? So kind of then talking about what are the requirements to declare. For incoming freshmen, we are looking for a high school GPA of 3.25 or higher, or ACT composite score of 21, SAT score of 1060 or higher. For transfer students, we're typically looking at GPA. And so we are looking for a cumulative, and that's from everywhere, your most recent institution, previous institutions, cumulative GPA of 2.5 or higher. And then it's the same for current K-State students. If you are a current K-Stater looking to change over to the College of Business, we're looking for that cumulative 2.5 GPA and in good academic standing. Like I mentioned before, for anybody who's not quite there, we would be thrilled to work with you and craft that plan. I'm always excited to see folks, even if they're not declared in the College of Business, and kind of create a snapshot or a realistic picture of what that looks like to get where you want to be. Sarah, I'm going to advance to the next slide. I think, do you want me to cover? That might be dangerous. Do you want me to cover this, or should I hand it back over?
No, I can take it from here. Thank you so much, Chris. That was wonderful. And I'll go ahead and kind of cover next steps for everyone, some important deadlines to keep in mind. And then we'll get to everyone's questions. There's a couple that I definitely want Chris's input on. But if you do have any questions, please go ahead and start putting those in the Q&A box. But as you're doing that, I am going to go ahead and go through these deadlines that you see on your screen. So our next upcoming semester is the fall semester, and there is definitely still time to get your applications in if you are wanting to start this fall. August 1st is going to be that deadline. That's when we will need your application. There is also a $40 application fee and also official transcripts from all your previous colleges. If you're a transfer student, if you're a freshman, we would just need that official transcript or test scores for ACT or SAT, so that way we can get you admitted. Um, if you're maybe thinking about a little down the road, the application is open now for the 2026 semesters. So you can apply for that spring, summer, or even next fall. But these are going to be your deadlines for when we need all of those materials. Also, definitely go ahead and get FAFSA in, definitely so that way we can get you considered for any general university scholarships, federal grants, anything like that. We do also have a very short app scholarship application for our online student scholarships. So we do have separate scholarships that are just for our online students. Unfortunately, for fall, that application period has passed, but we do offer them for every semester. So there's some uh, calendar reminders and things that you just need to put in your calendar to think ahead. So that way you can fill out that application. I'll be putting that in the chat here soon, along with our school code that you'll probably need for FAFSA anyway. So if you are ready to go ahead and apply, the application is online, and there's the web address that you can go to. And this is the same application if you're going to on campus, online. You would just answer the questions as they apply to you and the modality that you're wanting to take courses. We are recording this. I apologize. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. But we are recording this, and you should be getting you should be able to see this on our Webinar Wednesday webpage here, probably in the next week or so. And so, if you need to go back and reference that, you certainly can. And if you still have questions after this, online at kstate.edu is our email, and Hannah and I check that constantly. And one of us will respond to you within 24 hours. And if we don't know the answer, Chris is up. Uh, so, so definitely reach out to us if you have any questions that you think of after this. But we'll go ahead. Chris, we did have a couple of questions. Um, One was brought up during when you were talking about the data analytics concentration. And they asked, do you have to already know the software systems that were mentioned? Excel, SQL, all of those. Is that something they need to know beforehand?
Actually, no, which is what I think is great about the program. So there's no expectation to come into the program knowing that information already. Um, One of our general business courses, Management 366, which we call IT for Business, is kind of the primer for this program. And it's a class all business students take regardless of their major. Um, so in 366, we kind of drill down to some of the techniques you'd use in Excel to sort data. A lot of that is actually somewhat transferable to some of these other platforms as far as what the mindset is. And then we'll get into other ways to organize data. I don't think I talked about Power BI, but that's something we talk about early on. And then from there, with our more advanced courses, we try to plan those out intentionally. So I like to start students with a management analytics class. It will kind of give an additional primer for what they'll encounter next. Um, Statistics ties in a little bit. Our statistics class will tie in a little bit to a couple of the upper level classes. And In a perfect scenario, then, for the last 3 classes in data analytics, I like to space those out across 3 semesters if I can. It is not necessary to do that, right? So for students on a timeline, you can take a couple of those together. Um, Again, no expectation that you go into MIS 665 or 670 having already worked with Python or SQL or anything like that. We teach the material in the class. I like for students to focus on each of those classes individually when we can. But like I mentioned with data analytics, depending on an individual's preferences and their timeline, we can stack those together if need be. And most of the time, it's not going to throw anything at you that's too new or too fast.
Awesome. That's great to know. Um, Another question that we had was when you were talking about operation and supply chain management, probably the concentration or the management degree. Um, do those positions, people that go into that kind of career, are they going to work more in offices or maybe in manufacturing facilities, maybe both? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. The concise answer would probably be both. But as you guys can tell, I never give a short answer to anything. So to dive into that a little bit deeper, supply chain, the nature of your work really depends on the company and the role that you have. Um, there are roles in supply chain that are, let's say they spend a portion of their day at a desk. And, we see that with things like folks doing the supply chain design, right? You're determining where we're going to do something. So you might be in an office, you're comparing, different costs that different, pros and cons that different locations might offer. Um, Now, certainly in that role, you'll probably get out and check out some of those places, right? So you will be away from the desk at times. Now, there are roles in supply chain that have very little desk work, and in fact, you would be on, at a production site. You might be traveling. Um, I had a graduate fairly recently who was working with a steel procurement company, and my understanding is he spends very little time in the office. He is traveling to different sites. He's talking to folks. He's looking at what different companies can offer. He's looking at manufacturing processes. So most of that is on site. Um, so I think to get to the root of the question, yes, I mean that you can work in an office setting with supply chain, but if you are somebody who wants to be on the ground, where things are happening, this is a great field to consider because it can absolutely get you out of an office setting and into a more action-oriented setting.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to get out of the office. So that's one of those, I think, kind of hybrid positions. Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
We did have another question, and this actually might be um, for Hannah or I. They asked, if they applied to K-State, were interested in operations and supply chain, but after the session, they're more interested in organization management. How do I change? Hannah, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can definitely help you with that. Since you are still an applicant, we can easily pretty much just change that on your application, and then you can be admitted as an organizational management major. So that way you're starting off from that point. If you do get enrolled and you're connected with Chris and working with him as a current student, then you'll be able to work with Chris to change at any point if you start taking organizational management classes and you think, you know what, now I'm thinking supply chain, or it's also easy to change your major after that too. But at the point that you're at, definitely reach out to us at that online at k-state.edu, and we can absolutely get that change on your application. So like I said, you'll be starting as that organizational management major. Yes. Yeah, and I see that, yep, you've been admitted. as a transfer, since you haven't enrolled in classes yet, should still be able to switch that on your application, and then we can go from there and get you connected with Chris. So yeah, definitely start out with us at that online at ksu.edu, and we can get you all sorted out, and then get you through our orientation process, which will then get you connected with Chris. So we'll be a great starting off point before you get all enrolled in classes and everything. But we are excited to have you. So happy to hear that you are admitted and enrolled and everything like that. So yeah, just shoot us an email. We'll get your application information and things like that. And then we'll get you switched over to that. But yeah, happy to hear it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Hannah. And yeah, one thing I guess I should have mentioned was after you applied and been admitted, we do have an onboarding process where you create your K-State EID, which is your login information that you'll use for all of your K-State accounts. Like KSIS, which is the information system where you can view all of your personal information. You can accept financial aid through all kinds of different things in there. You'll also have access to, I believe it's Navigate or Navigate. Navigate.
Yep.
And that and that's where you'll talk a lot with Chris. That's kind of our advising hub. So definitely be using that as well. All of those K-State systems that have abbreviations and everything that you'll learn. And that all will be covered also in the required online orientation. The online orientation is something that you will have to register for. It will be linked in that accepted email that you will get. If you haven't already, make sure if you are accepted, make sure you have registered and completed that orientation. Once you've completed that, your advisor, Chris, will be notified, and then he'll reach out to you, usually within about 7 business days, as long as, you know, we aren't on vacation or there's a holiday or no, Chris is very good at getting back with his students, and I really appreciate everything he's done for our students and especially today. So thank you again, Chris, for your time and knowledge. And I know I've learned some new things, so this is very helpful for me.
Well, thanks so much, Sarah. I really appreciate it. I'm lucky to be part of such an incredible team with K-State Online, and our admissions team just does incredible work. Um, so I know we're probably at the end of our presentation, but I did have one other thought. Can I add
Yeah,
to our,
absolutely.
to our last question? Okay. Um, as part of the advising process, I'm lucky to work with a college that uh, I think has an area for everyone. Truly, in business, there is some area of business for everybody that wants to be involved in business. And beyond that, I think it has really good intentional design of their curriculum and classes. And talking about changing majors as we go, as some of the planning process, we'll often look for some overlap between our various programs and plan those classes a little bit earlier, to give people more timing to change major, right? So sometimes that happens before you're admitted, sometimes that happens before you enroll, and sometimes that happens after a semester or two. So I just want folks to know, it's generally very feasible to move from one area of management to another. Yeah, oftentimes you can move from one area of business to another area. And we'll look very proactively at, does that look like a concentration? Does it make sense for it to be a major? What program best fits where you're at in the process of working towards graduation?
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great point. And just to kind of build off that too, we do also have some great online minors that would fit in there. And Chris would be the person to talk to add that on to your plan, help declare a minor. But I'm going to do a last call for any questions as we're kind of wrapping up here. If anyone has any other questions, go ahead and type them in real quick. But again, if you come up with any questions after this presentation, please email Hannah and I at that online at ksu.edu or k-state.edu. Both of those work. But I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so we'll go ahead and end this. Thank you everyone again for taking time out of your busy schedules. And Chris, thank you for taking time during your lunch break to talk with us. And yeah, again, if we can help, let us know. We appreciate everyone. Take care, everyone. Thanks so much.